If you're a parent or a guardian who believes that your kids spend too much time looking at a screen and not invested in the thrills of life outside of their digital devices in this age of digital and social media, you're not alone, according to my friends at the Government of Saskatchewan. They've got striking new data that reveals a troubling trend and a striking disconnect in family life, with approximately 55% of Canadian parents who believe that screen time interferes with their ability to authentically connect with their children and establish quality family time. Meanwhile, 51% of Canadian teens say their parents are often distracted by their own phones during conversations and quality family time. These statistics reveal a striking problem that we all must urgently deal with. The uncomfortable truth of the matter is that this is simply not just a youth or teen conundrum. It's a confliction of family systems and values concern. In this episode, we unpack what these numbers really reveal about the way in which families are relating to each other in an always connected world. The truth of the matter is, when both parties, the parents and the teens, believe the other is too connected to their online life to connect, the truth is, the problem is not technology, it's attention, presence, and emotional availability. In this episode, I had the distinct pleasure of sitting down with my friend Nathan Graham. He's the author of Why Won't He Just Log Off? He's a speaker, coach, entrepreneur, and father. Nathan works with families, communities, and parents to better understand the rising challenges of video game addiction, excessive screen time, and the rising link and connection to digital dependency and children and teens. Rather than focusing on simply restricting technology, Nathan focuses his attention on taking a deeper approach and exploring the deeper emotional, psychological, and social connection and needs problems that often sit underneath the screen time and is often the catalyst for the disconnect. He works to help parents move beyond conflict cycles and focus on rebuilding the trust and strengthening the communication pipelines at home. In this episode, Nathan breaks down what it takes for parents to model the behavior they actually want to see and how small shifts in daily habits can really make all the difference. Things like presence, listening, and intentional phone use can begin to restore authentic connection. And he joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Alrighty, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm excited to talk to you about how we reduce screen time for today's kids and give them a more authentic experience. It's great to see you and happy Monday to you, my friend.
Awesome. I'm ready when you are.
Absolutely. So, Nathan, I wanted to start our conversation by asking you why you believe so many kids, are attracted to screen time, and where do you think the disconnect is with them getting the screen time, but also getting the authentic time they need to connect on a human level? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm seeing this kind of as a larger issue that we have core needs in day-to-day life that we everybody does to fulfill. So you and I are doing this right now on the podcast. We're doing this to go deep to fulfill core needs in us. And especially among young people today, I find our systems aren't exactly set up to fulfill those needs in a healthy way for most young people. And it causes them to turn, like, no matter what happens, we're always going to find a way to fulfill these needs, positively or negatively. And so it causes them to turn to unhealthy ways of fulfilling those needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I know you're the author of the book, Why Won't He Just Log Off, my friend? I know that you're also an author, a speaker, and a coach and an entrepreneur. And, I'm curious to ask you, about connecting with parents and becoming, also an important voice in allowing your kids to explore social media and screen time, but also making sure that they have developed other interests. How important do you think that is, my friend?
Yeah, I think that's very important. So when we look at fulfilling what these needs are, so I'll quickly go through the needs because that kind of sets up the entire outlook that I have on this. Um, Everything we go through, either A, we're looking for certainty in life. So things that we do in life, we're doing to make sure that we have a roof over our head, that we have income coming in, that we have a car to take us to work or away, like certainty, things that make us certain and secure, know the rules of the game, right? The other thing that we have is adventure. So once we're certain and secure, we go out into life and we look for adventure. We need to try new things. The third one is significance. And this is one that really hits home, especially in the gaming world. Things that we do is we want to make sure that we matter, that we're listened to, that if we're leaders, we want to make sure we have people to lead. If we're followers, we want to make sure we have a voice that is heard. It makes us feel significant in life. And the last one is adventure. And the sense of the last one is loving connection. I already went through adventure. The last one is loving connection. The loving connection is being a part of groups, making sure that we're accepted by others. And when I look at young people today, they're trying to fulfill these core needs. And so when we look at how important it is, if they don't fulfill these needs in a positive way outside. So for me growing up, for a part of my life, it was football. That's a way I fulfilled those needs and I felt it was positive. I worked hard and I got rewarded with these needs. Yet that seems to be going away in today's world. In today's world, we have things like participation trophies where it doesn't, or equal play time in sports. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It just matters that everybody feels good at the end. And so the reward at the end, whether you work hard or not, isn't fulfilling to the average young person. Same idea with grades and the pass it forward system here in Canada. Doesn't matter what your grades are, they're going to move you to the next grade anyways. And that basically is just telling people that you're working hard isn't going to be noticed to fulfill those needs. So we're going to find a way to do it. I think when parents take this look of, and I want to be very clear, I do take a different look at gaming. Having said that, I'm not saying that people should be able to game or stay on their phones 100% of the time. I truly believe that this is about fulfilling those needs, and that parents can start engaging with their teenager to understand, why is this addiction really happening? What are they getting out of this versus just assuming it's an entertainment source, right? So I think rules and boundaries and guidelines are very positive. Set play time are very positive in this world. It's just a matter of figuring out with your teen what that looks like. Does that make sense? Did I answer the
Yeah,
question? I feel like that was a long way of answering a question.
well, Nathan, as a former journalist, my friend, I never shy away from long-winded answers, so you're just fine, my friend. I promise. Okay.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm building on that. I want to ask you about the emotional, social, and psychological needs that we were just talking about, and you know how we can replace the excessive gaming with really getting into the core of the emotional, psychological, or social needs that kids are clearly missing if they're spending that much time in front of a screen. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at, so let's just say we agree with the assumption that they're not getting these things met in school because they're not being shown, like especially as a young man growing up. I have no idea what it was like to be a young lady growing up because I was not a lady, but as a young man growing up, I know that I often compared myself to other guys in the sense of sports. It was like a competitive ladder, right? I wanted to be first string wide receiver. I didn't want to be second string. And these are all ways that I could gauge my sense of accomplishment. Well, if a lot of that is taken away, they're going to find that in the gaming world. The gaming world is one of those ones that you do a little bit better, you level up, you get a little bit stronger, and you can see how you compare to other people constantly. So it gives you a sensory feedback that we're all looking for in life to see how well we're doing. Well, one of the key things is when you understand that, let's just say significance is the core need that they're trying to find. If we're going to rip that away in the gaming world, we can find other ways to replace it. Music is another great one. My daughter plays piano. She's very good at piano. And music is a way that, yeah, she likes to game, but she finds her sense of fulfillment through music. She finds her sense of significance through music. It could be gymnastics. It could be football, as I said, hockey. It could be chess. It could be art. Art is another way. I was an artist growing up, and I would find my sense of accomplishment through that, right? I would also find my need for love and connection as I entered into these worlds, especially on a sports team. These were my boys. Like we all knew what each other were going through. We could all relate to each other. We could all connect to each other on this level. When I stopped playing football out of high school, that's when gaming personally, when I had my gaming addiction, really hit me because I had no way of fulfilling these needs anymore, right? So as parents, if we understand what's going deeper, we can find the other interests that they're interested in to help them fulfill those needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And building on that last answer, Nathan, for any parents watching this that present you with the argument with the argument of, well, I'm busy and the screen and the time is a way to sort of occupy my kids while I'm getting stuff done. You know, because I think a lot of parents use screen devices as an instant babysitter when they're in a pinch
Sure.
to find a way to entertain their kids. But I think it's a detriment to the kids if you always rely on the screen and devices. Would you agree with that, my friend?
Yeah, I would generally agree with that, but I also want to be very clear. I have a 7-year-old at home, and she's at VBS right now. But usually, when she's at home and I'm doing one of these podcasts, I am 100% one of those parents that the iPad makes it a lot easier to get through a half an hour conversation, right? So I want to be very careful as we talk about this, not to come from a point of judgment, because I get it and I understand it, and sometimes it is very easy. I want to encourage, though, parents to look at building outside of that. If they're going to use this half an hour of work time and use iPad to kind of get their little bit of a break, we have to expand and grow the relationship from there. That can't be the end all. So, for example, um, I call it quantity over quality. The time that I spend with my daughter, we put down our phones, we put down the iPads, we play games together, we have conversations, we read together, we talk about piano. I am not a pianist, so I cannot help her out with the piano, but I talk to her about the piano. I get her to teach me things. The time that we do spend together, I spend with a lot of quality. And there is a certain reality that gaming is a part of the childhood culture now. If my daughter didn't know what Minecraft was, she probably wouldn't be able to talk to the other kids at school about Minecraft, which would also help exclude her from that. But having regulations and limits on it and not using it, I think you said it best, kind of like, or I'll paraphrase, I think what you're saying to agree. It's it's an easy answer not to use it as the end all excuse of just, hey, I don't have the time to deal with this right now. Here's an iPad. Doing that too much isn't when it gets dangerous, number one. Number two, if you are going to do that, you have to really monitor the kind of games that they're playing, right? So my daughter, for example, she plays a lot of building games, a lot of exploring games. She loves building houses. It's crazy. She loves building houses. She loves creating an idealistic fantasy world. She loves medical games, right? These are all games that you actually have some sort of skill set behind. Unlike, and I'm not blaming people who play Candy Crush. I've played my fair share of it, but that has really no strategic value behind it whatsoever, other than to get you addicted and progress. So there's these junk food games, but then there's also these positive ones that can grow skill sets. So on one hand, I definitely agree with you. I think we often too quickly rely on screen time to give ourselves as parents a little bit of peace and quiet. I also want to encourage parents, though, that if you are going to do that, number one, make sure you have some quantity time outside of that every single day with your child, whether it's reading stories at night, whether it's spending a half an hour watching their favorite show with them. And also police what they are playing. Make sure it's not junk food games. Make sure it's things like my daughter played this one game, and then all of a sudden I saw her get a lot better at Connect 4 when we play it. You could tell that there's a development of problem solving in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, as a kid, one of my favorite video games was actually Wheel of Fortune because I learned how to
Mm,
spell and do, solving puzzles and all that stuff. So one of my favorites was Wheel of Fortune. My brother and I. So I have an identical twin brother, and we also played Sim City because we like the managed
nice.
city operation. So it's about finding the tactical balance between the two, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I love those two examples you gave because I played a lot of Sim City growing up as well. And what Sim City will allow you to do, and what cognitively we don't understand what's actually happening. We don't play it always for this purpose, but cognitively, it's actually helping our spatial awareness develop within our brain and think about complex systems because that's the way the game is designed. So here's a fun fact. I was reading a study a while ago where doctors in North America, surgeons in North America that played video games well in college and university and getting their degrees had a higher success rate at their surgeries with less complications. And the reasoning that they believed that was because of eye hand coordination and the ability to focus and concentrate. So here you have this one more quick one. Young people, like especially young boys, are struggling in the school systems today. Yet when they play a video game that is historically accurate, that is actually teaching them real history, but in the form of a game, they are retaining the information and the lessons learned from that at a far higher level than they are in school, right? Yeah, and so to your point, there are things happening in the background of the brain that are actually teaching good lessons. Now, again, I'm not telling you to let your kid be on a video game for 14 hours a day. What I am saying is if they're going to be on it for 1 or 2 hours, let's make sure that it's developing a skill set like SimCity, like Wheel of Fortune, teaching you how to spell, guess. Like Wheel of Fortune helps your brain. Like Kevin, let me ask you, do you find your brain just puts puzzles together whenever you see something now? You just put it together?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the reasons I went into journalism was because of Wheel of Fortune, because I like to tell stories and
Hmm.
through communication, and that's one of the reasons I went into journalism for sure, my friend.
Amazing. Well, exactly. So it's kind of showing that, sure, the games can be destructive, yet they can also be used for good.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nathan, just because I like you so much, I'm going to give you some data that backs up the points you've been making this morning. So, our friends from the government of Saskatchewan, my friend, say that 55% of parents believe that their kids' screen time is interfering in their ability to connect with their kids. But 51% of Canadian teens say that their parents are equally on the phones just as much as they are when they're trying to connect. So I'm curious, what do you make of those findings, my friend? And what does it tell you about the importance of it being a two-way street? Because parents have to model the behavior they want their kids to follow, don't they?
Absolutely. This was I'm trying to figure if I can say this without throwing my parents too much under the bus because they were fantastic parents. But whatever, I'm going to say it anyways. My parents worked very hard growing up. My mother was a nurse. She's retired now. My dad's retired. He was a minister. So when I was the ages of 10, 11, and 12 and 13, there was a lot of times I came home to an empty house with an older brother to look after me. And one of the things I realized, and my dad would come home and he would, many dads do, have a rough day at work. He would have a beer and he would watch TV. And we were always told to participate in the house. And one of my biggest arguments, so I use this as an excuse. So what I want to let you know, this is my excuse. When my wife bugs me about not doing the dishes at home, it was like, well, I never saw my dad do dishes, right? But yet I saw my dad mow the lawn all the time, and I love mowing the lawn, right? To your point, we model our behavior. If we're telling our kids to be off the screen and yet we're having it with us at dinner time or we're having it with us at game time, then that is a problem. If one of the big ones I struggle with is when I tell my kid no screen time during dinner, no TV shows during dinner, but then there's a Blue Jays game on or a Saskatchewan Roughriders game on. Go Riders, by the way. A Riders game on. I have that on, and that's me being very hypocritical. So kids will often observe what we do, not what we say, and mimic that. And the other point I'd like to bring up, I see this in my daughter all the time, this need for loving connection, especially prior to the ages of 12, 13 years old. They need that with their parents too. And I can observe it in my daughter when she's not getting that from us. So I'll give you an example. When my daughter was 4, we had a problem at bedtime. She kept coming out. I'm sure many parents can relate with this. She kept coming out at bed. We would threaten to take away stuffies and all the rest and have all these punishments in place. And one night it was a big argument. Like my daughter's a good kid, and I ended up taking every single stuffy out of her room. It was one of those classic arguments I'll remember forever. My wife and I got talking that night, though, and we thought, what is my daughter actually trying to accomplish by doing this? Like, she doesn't actually want to stay up. She loves sleep. Bedtime used to be so good. What is she actually trying to accomplish? And we had this thought that maybe she's trying to accomplish loving connection. So our bedtime routine was 2 stories. We say 3 things that we're all thankful for. We say our prayers, and that's done. Then what we said, and we were trying to shy away from cuddle time. We didn't want to make cuddle time this long habit in our kids' lives. But then we thought, okay, maybe she's missing loving connection. So we changed it. We gave her a choice. We let her decide. You can now have 1 story and 5 minutes of cuddle time. And we set a timer in that. And that's what she chose. As soon as we started giving that to her and fulfilling that need of love and connection with her, the bedtime problem stopped. All the arguing stopped. And now it just took 5 minutes of cuddles and 1 story. And we were fulfilling that need. So remember, kids are trying to fulfill that need with us as parents as well. And we need to reciprocate that on their level.
Yeah, for sure. And it also proves that there's no handbook when it comes to effective parenting, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because I always make the joke that when my parents were growing up, there was no handbook, and now we have way too many. Now you do one thing and you have 15 handbooks telling you you're wrong, and you do another one and you have 10 more podcasts telling you you're wrong. And so every kid is different. To your point, there is no handbook. Every kid is different and needs different things.
Well, it's an exact science that we all try to get right at once. But to your point, my friend, I'm curious to get your finding on this because last year, Statistics Canada, they released a report that said that Canadian teens now spend roughly on average nearly 8 hours each day on personal screen devices, which is far more than the recommended 1 or 2 hours from the government, my friend. So why do you think so many kids are gravitating towards the screen time as we've discussed? And do those statistics surprise you at all, my friend?
So the statistics don't actually surprise me. One thing that does surprise me, though, and I apologize if I'm getting a little controversial on this statement, but we went through 2 years of being locked in our houses where we were told that you need to be on screens. I remember looking at this article in 2019 from the World Health Organization saying that gaming addiction is on the rise. And then about 6 months into COVID, seeing the same organization say video games may be the only social connection for your kids, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think number one, the messaging around this isn't always clear. It depends what angle they want to argue it from. The second point is this is what I mean by it's not being clear. I might scare some parents when I say this, but when I was 14, I moved out of the house when I was 17 years old. When I was 14 years old, I lived in BC, British Columbia, and I would take the bus from the town of Ladner I lived in to Richmond, which was a city, with my friends. We would go to pool halls at 14, 15 years old. We weren't drinking, but we were having our sodas and we were shooting pool, and those are not exactly the best environments. We would go to the movies. We would sneak out of the house. It we had freedom whether we liked it or not. And now I speak to parents these days who won't even let their kids go to the movies with their friends without them dropping them off and picking them up. So we're the question of the controversy I would propose is what do you prefer? If you're going to be hovering over your kid all the time, what do you expect them to do? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the difference. My parents allowed me to go out and explore this scary world. Now I had at the time we had pagers. That's how old I was. We didn't have cell phones. I had a pager and we had pay phones and I had quarters to call home and check in. And my parents liked that. I had a curfew, a time that I had to be back. And if I wasn't back by then, I was grounded. But these were the safeguards my parents put into place to let them know whether they should worry about me yet or not. Right. And by the way, I'm having a bit of an aha moment here, so bear with me. And I don't get a chance to talk about this much. Parents, I was speaking to a parent who wouldn't let their kid catch the bus to go downtown or go to the mall or whatever case may be because we live in this scary world. So I've heard, I don't have a teenager yet, but I've heard that now when kids go to a movie, they actually come home and then they talk on their phones. They text back and forth on their phones. They're on Instagram to go back and forth. Boys are on the video games playing with their friends and all the rest. So on one hand, we are literally creating the world that puts them on the screen. And then on the next hand, we're saying we don't want them on the screen. And the question I'd have then is well, what do you want? What are you going to suffer through? The fear of them becoming individuals and not hovering over and having every answer as a parent, which is a scary fear, and putting them out into this world, or keeping them in a safe, controlled environment and at home, and yet they're going to be on the screen when doing it.
Yeah, it's certainly a double standard. And by the way, I don't think that's such a controversial take. You know, you can't eat the you can't eat the eggs until the chicken lays them. So you know, it's between a rock and a hard place for parents. But I want to talk about your book because you argue in your book that parents don't need more timers or more ways to distract their kids. They need a way of explaining what they're doing that makes sense. And you argue that you know the games don't have to be the enemy if they're managed correctly. So tell me about the book, why you wrote it, and the message you hope parents get from it, my friend.
Yeah, so the reason why I wrote the book is because I was in a conversation with a couple from my church who had a 17-year-old son at the time who was very addicted to gaming up till 2 a.m., was swearing, getting angry, doing all that traditional behavior that we know. And they would get frustrated at 2 a.m. and go shut off the internet or unplug the device, and then it would create arguments and they'd all be exhausted the next day. And as I'm speaking to these parents, I'm kind of coming from two worlds. Number one, here I am now of what I guess would be considered successful. I've written a book. I run an AI company. I help businesses input AI solutions and help them with their advertising. I'm still a real estate broker and a mortgage broker for the past 16 years. I've been in the top 1% of my area. These are not things to brag, but these are just to show that I've been successful in this pathway of life so far. And I'm always in new adventures. But in my 20s, I was that kid in the basement playing games nonstop for 16 hours a day. I'm the one who called in sick to work. I'm the one who lost jobs. I've been married now 19 years, and I almost lost my wife before we even got married because of my addiction to gaming. And I was sensing on one hand this frustration from the parents that they felt that it was so hopeless for their son because their son is now 17, about to start college. and has this massive addiction. But on the other hand, I'm like, I was this young man. I know what he's going through, and I know it's not as simple as you're trying to say. And I saw this coming up more and more and more, this disconnect from how parents saw it to how young people, or how what I went through, saw it, right? And then the aha moment that a lot of things I learned in this video game world actually helped me with my businesses today, right? And I thought, people don't like to listen to advice, but they love to read about advice. Number one. Number two, it's a pretty large topic, which I need people to follow. So I kind of need a longer format, whether it's through a book, whether it's through speaking on stage to people, where they can hear it from start to end to understand it fully and see what is going on. And that's what drove me to write the book, because on one hand, I was that kid that was failing and getting all my needs met through video games. Yet now I'm the adult that looks at the positive side to gaming, and I use it in business every day. So I'll give you an example. If you want to be a top gamer and a top 1% gamer, you have to watch your sleep. You cannot play all night and wake up first thing in the morning. You cannot eat unhealthy. You have to work out. You have to take breaks. You have to schedule it. And this is what it means to be a top gamer and achieve top goals. You have to learn how to deal with failure. I have a story in my book about how we pulled a boss for 3 months over 400 times, and we died and failed over 400 times. And with 10 hours left, 20 of us still stuck together as a group to accomplish a goal, and we did it and beat that goal. You have to learn how to manage failure. You have to learn how to research outside of the game. You have to learn how to research your classes, your boss, your fight, your strategies, all these different things. Kevin, this is no difference from business. This is no difference than journalism, I would imagine. You are going to write articles that will fail. You're going to write ones that don't get published, and you have to learn how to keep fighting through it. You have to learn to research the client. I have to do this in business. I research my clients. I research my product. I have to stay on top of trends. I have to research my strategy. You know that you can't just live life unhealthily. If we have a career that we want to excel at, and the second we leave that career, we just shut our brains off and go and just drink and eat junk food all the time, we are not very motivated the next day to be doing a great job at that career, right? These are all skills that we can use in life. And you're young, you're a teenager, you're adult. When they get their needs met in a proper way, they can use skills this exact same way. The surgeons that are having better surgeries, the wheel of fortune that gets you into journalism, there's a skill set behind there that can really help. And this is what I hope parents leave with. This is, number one, I want parents to understand that, first of all, they are not broken. They are not doing this wrong, that this is a big fight. We are all exhausted, and parenting is hard these days. We've already talked about how there's so much judgment around parenting, right? When we're all trying to figure out the same thing. Number two, these are all skills and abilities that they can adapt in real life. And you can actually have calm conversations. You can actually create goal setting with your kids. You can actually create mastery and skill sets and help shift them into other things to fulfill those needs, where gaming just becomes a passion and fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, I wanted to drill down on, you brought up earlier that if you're not careful, that every discussion or conversation you have with your kids about gaming can turn into an argument if you don't know how to manage it correctly. So I'm curious if we can drill down on a specific roadmap parents can use if, screen time becomes a big debate in their house, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Mm-hmm. So when we look at a roadmap, the first thing is we have to understand that teenagers, all this stuff is brand new. As adults, we've been there before. So a teenager is going to try, and I want to say this right now, Kevin, I hated when my parents said this to me as a kid, but I'm about to say it because I'm now a parent. Teenagers think they can enter into the world of an adult. And at the age of 12, 13, that's when they start learning how to. That's when they actually start the progression into adulthood, understanding things different from when they were a kid. But they can't do it. When they're feeling complex emotions for the first time in a lot of cases, right? Mm-hmm. And this is something we don't talk about. When I looked at my daughter at 2 years old, she had like 3 emotions. She was happy, sad, hungry, and then eventually she got angry. but they weren't really complex. She wasn't feeling anxiety. She wasn't feeling depression. She was feeling, my diaper is wet and I need it changed, right? And these reactions. Well, when you get into a teenager mode, these become very complex. Teenagers are feeling rejection, isolation. They're feeling what's the right term? The sense to compare to other people, all for the first time. Now, you and I in life, we've been through this, man. We were through high school. We were
Yeah.
through those jobs. We're learning how to deal with rejection. We understand not everybody's going to like us, and we found strategies to deal with that, right? Um, Teenagers are getting this for the very first time. So this is why they cannot enter into an adult world. They have what I call textbook smarts, but they don't have participatory knowledge. They know what the feeling is, but they haven't participated in it yet to be able to figure out what's going on. As a parent, though, we have. And our role shifts from being that source to being a guide and helping them through a lot of this. So, number one, when you look at what their gaming addiction is, come from curiosity. Don't come from judgment. We've been there. We think the solution is easy. They haven't gotten to that conclusion yet, right? So I've been trying to rack my brain about what is one thing my parents said, just don't do, and I just didn't do it without learning the hard way.
Hmm.
And for the life of me, I can't think of one. I always had to learn the hard way. So what I do remember though are those times that I learned the hard way and my parents were there to back me up and support me and guide me through it. That is what teenage life is about. So number one, understand that this is not a judgmental space. This is coming from curiosity. Figure out what is going on behind their needs. Number two, because they can't enter your world, but you can enter theirs, also understand what is going on in their world. At 2 in the morning, when it's at 10 and this argument is raging and you unplug that device, you're not just causing them to lose the game. You're causing 5 to 10 people or 20 people who rely on them to lose the game as well. A lot of these games, if one person makes a mistake, the game is over. And so now in their social group are asking questions like, oh, is Kevin reliable? Because he just disconnected from the game. Can we now invite him back? Because we don't know if he can stay for the whole thing. And this is what parents don't understand is often going on. And so you have this place of significance in this social world um, where when we tear it away, we're tearing away so much more than entertainment source. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about setting guides and setting rules. If you set it for 10 p.m. and you let them know the consequences, give them a 9:30 warning. Hey, Nathan, you have a half an hour left. Finish up what you're doing. Dinner's going to be ready in 10 minutes. It's going to be ready in 5 minutes. Wrap up what you're doing. And this allows them to now finish their commitment to their peer group while now being able to get off the game and just not ripping it from them.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a delicate balance for sure, and I know that you believe that the dopamine that are in our brain is affecting our ability to connect with technology, and you also say that technology is designed for kids to be addictive. So tell me about the intentional design of technology, how parents and teens manage that, and how we can find a delicate balance between the advantage of technology, but also knowing when enough is enough, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
So I love this part of it too, because this is kind of going back to our conversation earlier about having two types of games, having junk food games and having good games. Now, first of all, the gaming industry is a lot like the casino industry, right? When you walk into a casino, there's so many things going on in slot machines. Like slot machines, there's no skill. People will tell you there's a skill, but there's no skill behind slot machines. It's pure random luck. But they'll do things to keep you addicted. Like they call it the small win celebration, where you actually win less than what you spent for that winning, but they make it sound like you've won more than what you did. And like bells go off and alarms and you feel great and the screen lights up. Well, this creates dopamine hits in the brain. And your brain's like, hey, logically, I know I didn't win that much, but boy, that felt great. Well, video games do a lot of the exact same thing. When you start in a game and you level up, let's say, it's like these fireworks go off and you're like, wow, that actually felt good to go from level 1 to level 2. It gives you trackable progress. It makes you noticeably stronger every time you go up. And these are all things that hit dopamine in the brain over and over and over and over again that create an addiction. Your brain loves dopamine. Now, dopamine in itself isn't bad. There's many ways to get it. But if you think about getting it through a sense of accomplishment, one, a video game isn't exactly leveling up a hard way of getting accomplishment. You
Yeah.
just go do the steps and you level up and you feel great. When I was in football, I got dopamine hits from catching a, a pass 40 yards downfield as a receiver and scoring a touchdown, right? So when I look at what that dopamine hit is, that took hard work, that took accomplishment. The other thing that happens is what's called the flow state. And the flow state is I shoot a lot of pool, a lot of billiards. And every once in a while I get into a mode when I'm playing where I can like sense an energy over the table. I know exactly what's going to happen. I know where each ball is located without looking at it. I know exactly where to hit the ball. It's like a sense of mastery. Games have a way of putting everybody in that flow state very quickly. And so it becomes this point of high concentration focused around mastery. And this is a great state to feel in and be in, but it's also a state that when it's broken, we get frustrated and angry at whoever broke it and we kind of lash out at them. So when we look at the neurological side effects of the game is number one, we're getting entered into the flow state. And number two, we're getting a constant dopamine hit, which creates an addictive state. And this is why it's so important if your kids are going to game to look at the two types of games. You have some games that are designed that, yes, you're going to get those dopamine hits, but it comes from sense of accomplishment. I've played games where you had to master it to enter the flow state. You had to master it for that dopamine hit. It wasn't just given to you. Yet there's other games that just freely give it to you. Like Candy Crush is another one. Again, I'm not going to argue. I played my fair share of Candy Crush in my time, but the whole design of Candy Crush is just to give you dopamine hits. It's like junk food for the soul, right? And so this is where you pay attention to what kind of games are having the neurological effect. The only point to Candy Crush is to get you to spend money and get addicted and get to the next level. That's it.
Yeah. And, Nathan, I know you're a big sports fan, and I know you're a proud Canadian, my friend. So tell me, how do those things influence your life, my friend? Tell me, because, I used to be an old sports reporter, so anytime I can talk about sports and being Canadian, I love to do it, my friend. So I want to give you the platform to do just that, my friend.
Awesome. I love it. And I love it too, because how are gaming and sports connected? Gaming is like the new sport, like the mastery, man. When I was in football, I was chatting with my old coach, like 40 or 20 years later, but I was chatting with my old coach just the other day, and we were talking about mastery of it. Do you ever remember the phrase, the fundamentals?
I do, yeah.
Like I never understood that phrase when I was playing, but boy, I understand that so much more now. Is the fundamentals of the game are the base to everything that you do. And when you're sitting there to learn a sport, and my daughter right now is learning piano. I played the saxophone in high school. I'm teaching her the scales, fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. That becomes the core to drive towards mastery. And when I start watching things like football and I start watching things like call playing or watching soccer on TV, I love watching. It sounds so good, but like baseball, I love watching fundamentally sound baseball players. I remember watching. I think it was Bo Bichette last year. Do the one knee on the ground when catching fielding a ball, and I remember learning that when I was when I was 8 years old in like grade 4, learning how to do that fundamental, and it was just crazy to see how it happened. So like when I treat my gaming as same as I said, with like the same as sports, the same as running a company, man. Like the mastery that it can take when you find the right thing that fits becomes so much fun. Learning fundamentals, learning the good play, learning the team that you have around you, learning to read different positions. Like when I go into a boss fight now in a game, it's like reading an offense or a defense when I was playing offense, right? Mm-hmm. I'm learning how it's set up. I'm paying attention to how people move for the first few plays, right? It gets so exciting as we go in depth and we actually master what's going on. As you can tell, my voice lights up because I love the mastery of sports. I love it when anybody takes their craft My barber is the same way. My barber has a craft and he just masters it. And it's why I spend way too much money for my haircut. But I love having conversations with him. He is a master at his craft. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also curious to ask why are you proud to be authentically Canadian? Because, we just had Canada Day this past week, and I'm curious, why are you proud to be authentically Canadian, my friend?
so Canada, this is what I love about Canada is it doesn't matter what your ideology is, it doesn't matter what your religious background is, it doesn't matter what your culture is. Canada gives every single individual to be the opportunity to be absolutely amazing in all things that they do. It doesn't matter if you grew up rich, it doesn't matter if you grew up poor. In Canada, with the right plan, it can take only 3 years to change your entire life. And there's not a lot of places around the world that allow you to do that. We are entering an AI age right now that gives people the opportunity to compete and learn at a level unseen before,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because we live in a place like Canada, we have the opportunity to take advantage of that. And I really wish, like, I think deep down, we've had a very controversial country over the last 10 years, and I understand why. Yet deep down, I believe we all know that in Canada, we have these principles that allow us to push and move forward. We have a government that supports us, regardless of whoever you voted for, in pushing and moving forward. I'm an oversharer. My daughter was done through IVF. It's the only way we could have kids. And in Canada and Ontario, they pay for the first round of it. And that's like my family would not exist if it wasn't for Canada. So we can argue about politics, we can argue about religion, we can argue about all these things. But deep down, if you do the research, if you want to work hard and you want to put yourself out there, we live in a place where you can accomplish any goal that you want to accomplish. And that's a pretty fantastic thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got two quick ones left for you. And the first, because I know that your expertise goes beyond parenting, my friend, you've developed the concept of the mirror match game, which explores how self-awareness transforms things like leadership, parenting, and personal growth. So tell me, how have these concepts been connected for you, and why do you believe that the relationship we have with, our every aspect of our life is important, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so the mirror match game. First of all, I'd love to say I wish I could tell you I developed it, but I did not. I learned it. I one thing I love doing is just learning about how people operate. And I'm going to give you an example of the mirror match game here in a second. But this is a way to be more influential and connect with people. So, like Kevin, let me ask you: have you ever just met somebody that you instantly connect with? You don't know why, you don't really know them, but you're just like, "Wow, I love this person. They have like great energy."
I did it this morning when I met you, my friend.
Amazing. I felt a lot of the same way. I instantly felt comfortable. Now, on the same reverse, though, have you ever met someone you're like, I don't know what it is. They haven't done anything wrong, but I don't know about this person. I'm kind of having second thoughts about getting a relationship with them.
Well, that happens every day in the office. Doesn't know. I'm only kidding.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of that reason why is because of we are at the end of the day, we're tribal people. We like to have our culture. We like to have our tribe. And what we're doing is one thing I noticed right away between you and I, Kevin, is we had similar energy levels. We had the similar hypes in our voices. We had the similar way of doing things. Our mannerisms were relatively the similar. Our words were relatively similar. And what we're doing on a subconscious level is we're picking all these things up, right? And this is where the mirror match game comes into play. It's about how to be more influential and how to make a connection with people. Is that when you're mimicking their language, their behavior, when you're mimicking their energy, they begin to have an instant connection with you, right? And when you're not, it's like you have an instant break, and this happens a lot, and we don't realize it. So I'll give you an example of this, if that's okay, Kevin.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a very, very busy Tim Hortons? And I mean, like one of those days that it's super busy. We have a lineup of people. You're sitting there waiting, and everybody behind the counter looks like they're like flies running out, ants running all over the place, working very hard. And they're like, next person, next person, next person. And they come up to you, and it's finally your turn to go up. And you look at him, and you just go, "Sir, what would you like?" And you go, "No, I think I want to get what's good here."
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right away because I'm sure you noticed the energy shift, and I'm sure there's a party who just wanted to punch me in the face for shifting the energy that way. You're like, come on, let's go, right?
Yeah.
That means we're out of rapport. That energy shift we felt is because the whole world was acting one way and I chose to act another one. And then we get this uneasy feeling between us. So think about this with your kid while gaming. Your kid's going, playing a game, strategizing, it's in the mode and all the rest. And then they're ready to go. And all of a sudden you come in and you're like, okay, time to break that. And you just shift the entire energy around them. Well, automatically, just like it was with the Tim Hortons example, we begin to feel that we have a break. We're out of rapport. We're out of influence with them, right? So a much bigger strategy sometimes is to sit down and watch them for a couple of minutes. Don't distract them. Pay attention what they're doing. And then when you see a natural break in the game, ask them some questions about it. That's going to get us in rapport with our child to help that conversation go a lot easier, right? And this is just more than with your child, by the way. This works with children. This works with spouses. This works with sales. I've been in sales most of my life, and it's one of those things I do to create comfortability across a table from somebody, is I mimic what they're doing. The other thing it allows is that I'm now paying attention to you instead of just myself, right? Because I need to observe you. I need to observe your behavior. I need to listen to your words to be even be able to mimic them. And this takes me out of myself and starts putting me into your world. And who doesn't appreciate it when that happens, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan, I'm going to end on a two-part question because I am curious to get your thoughts on this. So outside of hosting this podcast, I also do some professional speaking, and I talk to organizations about the importance of developing resilience in the face of organizational change. And I often use myself as an example because at the age of 9, Nathan, I was told by a doctor that I wouldn't be able to walk without assistance because I was born with a severe form of cerebral palsy. But I always say that everyone's portrait of success is different, my friend. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how organizations can develop resilient mindsets. And I'm curious to ask you about your own personal and professional legacy, my friend, and how you want that to be defined.
Awesome. Oh, I love that second part to that. Okay, so the first one, there's a phrase we use around our house. The law shows us that we need to change. Grace is what truly changes our hearts. And this is one of those things in organizations, if you want to build resilience. There seems to be one type of organization that is nothing but rules, and if you don't follow and you break those rules, you're in a lot of trouble. And then you seem to have other organizations that are just willy-nilly, there's no rules at all, and they can just do whatever they want. And both don't actually seem to succeed at a high level. We need rules, we need structure. You know, when you're running an organization, the people you are leading, and I'm going to use that term because you are leading people, whether you like it or not, they need to understand the game that they're playing. They need to understand the rules of the workplace. And that, when they don't follow the rules, shows somebody within a corporation that they need to change because they're not following the rules. Yet it's grace is what truly changes us. It's when the leader walks with you through the journey, through your mistakes. It's when the leader stands by you that we develop and we grow into the people that we're going to be. And I'm going to take a guess here, Kevin, is after that diagnosis of cerebral palsy, I'm going to assume for a minute that you actually had a few key people in your life walk with you through the struggles. They didn't get rid of the struggles. They didn't hide them. They walked with you through them. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, and I'll tell you a quick story and then I'll allow you to finish. So the day after I found out that I wouldn't be able to walk for the duration of my life without assistance because of my CP. I had to start my fourth grade year of elementary school, and anybody that's listened to my podcast knows this story, but for your benefit, I will repeat it. So I started my fourth grade year of elementary school, and the first day of school, I was called down to the principal's office, not because I was in trouble, but because my middle school principal, Dr. Carol Crewley, knew I was going to why I was in the hospital the day before school started, and throughout the course of my life, Nathan, I've had a total of 7 surgeries as a result of my disability in one form or another. So when I was discharged from the hospital and I had my final surgery, Dr. Crowley called me into her office and she had everyone associated with my file, from teachers to social workers to my parents were even there, and she had a big space in the middle of her office for my wheelchair, and I went through the story of what the doctor had told me the day before, and she looked at me at the end of the story and said that the only limitations on your life are the artificial ones that you place on yourself personally, and ever since then I've used that as sort of a guiding principle to living my life, my friend. So absolutely.
See, that's absolutely beautiful, because I don't think, and by the way, very similar, it just happened a lot later in life for me, is when somebody opened my eyes to that. So here, the law showed you that your life is going to be very different after this point. But what helped you become the amazing person you are is grace. If people would have stuck to that law and they would have tried to keep you down, or don't take risks, or blah, 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 whatever, that would have potentially hindered growth. Grace and those amazing people is what helps you grow. And this is what I want to encourage workplaces to do: is you have potential. I think about my life, the amount of places I worked at where people just didn't want to listen to me. You have potential sitting there in your office right now that is just waiting for that principal, just waiting for that doctor. Or in my particular case, my guy name was Todd, and he's the one who first confronted me about being a servant leader and about taking self-accountability, that I get to control my destiny, right? Not everybody has a Todd in their life. Not everybody has those people in their life. So in an organization, we can help be those people. And if we want to see who is really going to help us grow and help us achieve new heights, we need those people around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me about your own legacy, my friend, and how you want it to be defined.
Hmm. I don't actually, that's a fun question. When I was growing up, and I like to tell people this, I lived with a lot of limiting beliefs. So I'll just quickly share with you my 10-second story. I lived with a lot of limiting beliefs. My parents loved me dearly, and they did what a lot of parents did, though, is I talked about all these big dreams and big things I wanted to do, and they helped me temper my expectations. Son, not many people make it to the major leagues. It's not that they're trying to hold me down. It's that they love me so much they didn't want to see me hurt, right? And as I grew up, I was a very different person. That forced me to try to have a false sense of ego and a false sense of pushing towards things. And that was the legacy I was about to leave for myself, was one that I pushed my opinions on people, whether they were right or wrong. And I always had to prove that I was right and I was worthy, right? And then I sat down with a gentleman named Todd, and at that conversation, I was blaming my wife for our problems. I was blaming my family for our problems, and Todd mentioned one thing: is, first of all, he validated what I was going through, which was the first time that ever happened. He said, "Nathan, what you're feeling is absolutely correct." But then he followed up and said, "But let me ask you, how is this serving your family?" And I don't know what hit me so hard about that point, but from that moment on, my entire life changed, and I started, very slowly, albeit, I started developing a growth mindset of, one, pushing limits and pushing beliefs, one of curiosity, one of, screw it, why not, just try it, right? And that's one of the big things I've been going off lately. So when I look at my life of how I want to be remembered, I want people just to remember me as a very curious person that wanted to explore and didn't let bad things or bad reasons stop them. That I could have reasons or results, and I can't have both. And I always pushed for the results.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, my friend, Tell me how people can get connected with you if they're so inclined to do that, my friend.
For sure. So on my website, syntheticecho.ca, is where you can find information about me, my company, my public speaking, my book, everything else like that. That's syntheticecho.ca. You can also follow me on Instagram at synthetic.echo.hub. I like to respond to as many messages on Instagram as I can. I like to keep some of my stuff entertaining and not too boring. So please give me a follow there to connect. Lastly, if it's okay to say, my book is on Amazon right now, and
Of
I would
course.
encourage people, if you pick up a copy, please leave me a review if you enjoyed it. Don't leave me a fake review. Give me honestly what you thought about it. If this is helping people and it helped you, fantastic. Because right now, not having reviews is the biggest hindrance of this getting into people's lives, and I really do believe we'll be changing lives one at a time. So please let me know what you loved about it. Let me know what you hated about it. Um, I'm open to all criticisms and all critiques. And I think that's how we have to be from curiosity. So you can find me at syntheticecho.ca, synthetic.echo.hub on Instagram. And please leave me a review, buy the book, check it out, and let me know what you truly think.
Yeah, well, that's another form of authentically trusting people, right?
Absolutely. And please
Uh,
be honest in the review. I don't want to fill this with BS reviews because not everybody's going to love it. And hopefully, not everybody's going to hate it.
uh, well, the law of averages eventually finds its middle, right? No, I'm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nathan, I want to thank you for being so vulnerable and open about your own personal journey with video game addiction, how you've helped to transform the perspective of parents around the issue, and how you are hopefully helping parents better authentically connect with their kids, my friend. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I want to thank you for engaging in conversation. It's most appreciated.
Awesome, Kevin. And I want to let you know I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing getting this message out. I enjoyed your story about what you went through school. I'm going to be sharing this as a hope of inspiration for others. So I appreciate you and this opportunity, and thank you very much.